Welcome to Learn at Work, a webinar by the journal Work, a journal of prevention, assessment, and rehabilitation published by iOS Press. Well, I'm delighted that we have colleagues in Sweden who are going to be providing this webinar now. And I'm just going to turn it over so Patrik, you can introduce your colleagues and yourself, and we'll just get started. So welcome and thank you for publishing in Work.
Thank you so much. My name is Patrik Haraldsson. I'm a PhD student at Jönköping University in Sweden, and my co-authors are Rolander, Dirk, Jonker, Strengbom, and Kristina Areskough Josefsson, and our research focus is on work environment and health in the healthcare sector. And I will start the presentation by saying that we are glad and honored and would like to thank Editor-in-Chief Karen Jacobs and the Work Journal for this opportunity to present at Learn at Work webinar. And our paper with the title Further Psychometric Evaluation of the Structured Multidisciplinary Work Evaluation Tool, the SMET questionnaire, Practical Implications in Healthcare Settings. The background is that research has identified a lack of useful and psychometrically well-tested methods for evaluation of the work environment in healthcare. And I should say here that we know that there are some instruments or measurement methods, but they are, at least to the best of our knowledge, only evaluating aspects of work like physical aspects or psychosocial aspects. And this indicates an urgent need for high quality methods for evaluation of the work environment in healthcare setting. And the structured multidisciplinary work evaluation tool, the SMET, was developed based on action research between 2008 and 2014 to meet the need for effective evaluation of the work environment with a broader multifactorial approach and with a focus on that, the multifactorial approach. Previous psychometric evaluations of the SMET questionnaire have shown, and we have tested it with regards to content validity, internal validity, and external validity. And with regards to content validity, we were able to show good pragmatic validity by describing the development process of the SMET questionnaire, and also testing the content validity with a method called Content Validity Index. And this paper was published in Work 2016. We then moved on to test internal validity and were able to show good inter-rater and test-retest reliability in a paper, also this one in Work 2019. And we have also tested an aspect of external validity, showing that the SMET questionnaire reflects true physical workload in certified nursing assistants in a medical ward setting. And this paper was published in Applied Ergonomics 2021. And what we did in this paper was we had nursing assistants work a normal workday with surface EMG and inclinometers, evaluating the workload, physical workload during the day, and then in the end of the day they answered the SMET questionnaire about demands at work, and we were able to show some strong correlations between the technical measurements and the results in the SMET questionnaire. Further psychometric evaluations are needed to support the use of the SMET questionnaire. We have in the previous test used classical test theory, and classical test theory evaluates the psychometric properties in an instrument based actually on correlation analysis, and method used are, for example, Cronbach's alpha for internal consistency, factor analysis for construct, and different tests of test-retest reliability. But there is also modern test theory, and one example of that is the RASH model, and this method evaluates the psychometric properties based on probabilistics. It transformed the raw data to first to odds, and then logarithming the odds to a metric called logits, and placing it thereby on an interval scale. And this is one of the differences between classical test theory and RASH, is that RASH evaluates an instrument on an interval scale, whereas classical test theory does it on an ordinal scale. Applying further psychometric evaluations with both the classical test theory and the RASH model can add useful knowledge about the psychometric properties of the SMET questionnaire, and the added knowledge will ensure high quality, validity, and reliability when evaluating work environment, and also the outcome of work environment measures with the SMET questionnaire in healthcare settings. So our aim in this study was to gain further understanding of the psychometric properties in the SMET questionnaire, and thereby increase the usefulness of the questionnaire both in research and in clinical occupational health service practice in healthcare settings. And we stated 5 research questions. The first one, are all response options in the initial 1 to 10 scale used? Is the questionnaire capturing the construct of the work environment? Is the measurement targeting in the questionnaire acceptable? Are the category threshold in the items naturally ordered? And the final one, are the work environment construct, the measurement targeting, and the category threshold order affected by the trichotomization procedure? And I will come back to this, the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomization procedure, what it really means. The sample consisted of 19 work environment projects at 13 different workplaces in the south of Sweden, and the workplaces were mainly medical ward departments, and the professions were mainly nurses and assistant nurses, and it was a pragmatic sample, departments in which the regional occupational safety and healthcare had been involved, using the SMET questionnaire between 2015 and 2018. And the data collection, the data was collected from these 19 work environment projects between 2015 and 2018. And in these projects, the SMET questionnaire was sent out to the employees using an online questionnaire system called SMaker, and was possible to answer for 2 to 3 weeks. And a little more detailed description of the SMET questionnaire. The SMET questionnaire contains 30 items which evaluate the workplace, or rather the work environment. It consists of 3 subfields evaluating physical aspects, like heavy lifting, awkward working positions, prolonged sitting, etc. Environmental aspects, evaluating noise levels, heat, cold, draft in the workplace, and lighting conditions, for example. And the psychosocial aspects, evaluating things like support, demands, sense of control, collaboration, etc. And all three subfields starts with a couple of items where the employees self-report physical, environmental, and psychosocial aspects of work. 7 physical, 4 environmental, and 10 psychosocial items. Following this, there is in each subfield, it contains an item that evaluates which of the previous item that constitutes the highest work demands. So you answer the 7, you self-report the degree of problem in 7 physical items, and then answer an item which of these previous items constitutes the highest work demands for me. And similarly in the other subfields. And each subfield also contains in the end an open-ended item where the employee can describe work conditions in free writing. So that makes it 9 items regarding physical aspects, 8 items regarding environmental aspects, and 13 items regarding psychosocial work aspects, which in total makes it 30 items. In the SMET questionnaire, these 22 self-estimating items in the physical, environmental, and psychosocial subfields are answered with a 1 to 10 response scale, where 1 equals no problem and 10 equals major problems. And only these 22 self-estimating items were tested in our psychometric evaluation. And then we do what we call trichotomization, and it is shown in the table. So if we start to the right, you see that there are response options 1 to 10. And response option 1, 2, and 3 are then trichotomized to response group 1. It's colored red and indicating low degree of problems. Response options 4 to 7 is trichotomized to 2, indicating is colored yellow and indicating some degree of problems. And response options 8 to 10 is trichotomized to 3, colored red, indicating high degree of problems. And the scale is trichotomized to indicate work environment risk exposure. And the trichotomization procedure was used to increase the understanding of the presented outcome when presenting the results of the SMET questionnaire to employees or employers. And it is easier to understand since it used the same color codes, green, yellow, red, as employed by the Swedish Work Environment Authority. Data analysis, we evaluated the use of the response option in the 1 to 10 scale, the initial 1 to 10 scale. Evaluation of how the respondents use the response options in the 1 to 10 scale was presented with descriptive data frequencies, percent, and skewness for each item. We also evaluated work environment construct, first with internal consistency, tested both with classical test theory and RASH. And in classical test theory, we used Cronbach's alpha, and an alpha value above 0.6 was considered good, and values above 0.7 were considered optimal. And internal consistency was tested in RASH with a method called person separation index. It is an evaluation of internal consistency similar to Cronbach's alpha, but conducted as mentioned previously, conducted on logit values. And the PSI, Person Separation Index, evaluates the ability of the items in the questionnaire to separate high and low person scores. So how able are the items to separate individuals or respondents with regards to their degree of problems in the questionnaire. A person separation index value above 0.7 was considered good internal consistency. And we also did comparisons of classical test theory and rash result, both in the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomized scale, to answer the question, how does the trichotomization procedure affect the construct of work environment? Further evaluation of construct validity was conducted with explorative factor analysis. We used principal component analysis, a varimax rotation, and an eigenvalue above 1. And only items with a factor loading above 0.5 to its factor were presented. And also here we were comparing the result from in the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomized scale to answer the question, the research question, how are construct validity affected by the trichotomization procedure? We also evaluated something called measurement targeting. In the rash analysis, it generates independent estimates of the respondents or persons and the item parameters on a common logit scale, where the location of the items relative to the respondents can be examined to show targeting between those. Measurement targeting was evaluated and presented in mean and standard deviations for logits. No difference between person and item mean value was considered perfect targeting, and a difference greater than 1 was considered poor targeting. Also here, we did comparisons between the result in the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomized scale to answer the question how measurement targeting was affected by the trichotomization procedure. We evaluated something called category threshold order, and this is a very important and interesting evaluation. It tests the assumption that the response option order in the questionnaire works as intended. Our intention is that we are evaluating problems in work environment in different items from low degree of problem to high degree of problems, and this assumption can be tested. In other questionnaires, the response option can be from high to low, but in our case, from low to high. Category threshold order is presented with response category probability curve, and also here comparisons were conducted between the results in the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomized scale. For the classical test theory evaluations, we used SPSS version 24, and for the rash analysis, we used RUM 2030 version 5.1, and the rash analysis was conducted with a polytomous rash model, which allowed more than 2 ordered categories. Since there are a 1 to 10 scale and a 1 to 3 scale in the trichotomized versions, there are more than 2 response options, and therefore polytomous rash model should be used. Research suggests that sample sizes above 500 are considered very good in both rash analysis and classical test theory, at least for when it comes to factor analysis. The study has not been reviewed by an institutional review board, since this is not required for this type of study according to the Swedish Ethical Review Act. But the research study protocol followed the regulations in the Helsinki declarations, and the data has been stored on a safe hard drive in Region Jönköping County in accordance with the General Data Protection Regulation. So the results. The study material consisted of 1,001 answered questionnaire and 793 completely answered questionnaires were used in the analysis. This is because the RASH model wants to do in RASH you should do the analysis on completely answered questionnaire. That's at least the best way to do it. With regards to the use of the responses in the 1 to 10 scale, the result showed that all 10 response alternatives in the 1 to 10 scale were used by the respondents. 2 of the 22 items, item 7, which is an evaluation of problems related to prolonged sitting, and item 10, which is an item evaluating problems with noise levels, were highly positively skewed, showing a floor effect. But no items were moderately or highly negatively skewed. Evaluation of internal consistency. To the left in this table, in the upper part, you see up here, you see all self-estimating items in the questionnaire, all 22 self-estimating items, and the evaluation with Cronbach's alpha and person separation index. So this is for the total item, all 22 items, and then we separated it, showing the result from the 7 physically demanding work items and the result from Cronbach's alpha and person separation index, the environmentally demanding items, 4 items, and at the bottom, psychosocially demanding work items. And in the middle, we see the result from the 1 to 10 scale, and to the right, we see the result from the trichotomized scale. And what the result shows, starting with all 22 items, we see a good internal consistency in both scales. And we can also see in the physically demanding work items and the psychosocial demanding work items that the internal consistency is good. It is above 0.7 in all cases. But in here in the environmentally demanding work items, the internal consistency is worse. It is acceptable in the 1 to 10 scale, but in the trichotomized scale, at least shown with person separation index, the internal consistency is too low. And what that means and how we interpret this and what to do about it, I will come back to that later in the discussion. The factor analysis, the result from the factor analysis showed that they were the result in the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomized scale were almost identical. both led to 5 factors that was almost identical with regards to which items that loaded to the each factor. There was a difference in the cumulative percent of variance in the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomized scale, showing that the trichotomized scale captured a little less of the total variance in the data. Measurement targeting. I will speak by showing to the figures to the right. The figure above is the 1 to 10 scale, and the figure below is the trichotomized scale. And if we start in the figure above, you see the bars pointing downward here are the items presented from the left, the low location or low item scores, to high to the right, and the distribution of the items. And in the middle here we have the interval scale that the data is presented on, and the upward pointing bars are the person location, all 793 persons, and their location from a low location, a low score, to high score or high location. And the mean value of the item score is set to 0, and then you evaluate the difference, how much does the person score deviate from the item mean. And in this case, it's shown over here to the left. The difference, mean difference, was minus 0.176, which is very good. Perfect targeting is 0 and poor targeting is above 1. And we can also see, evaluate this from the distribution. We can see that how well the items and the persons are mirroring each other. And in this case, in the 1 to 10 scale, we can see that it is almost perfect targeting, both regarding the mean value and with regard to the distribution. So measurement targeting in the 1 to 10 scale is almost perfect. In the figure below, we have the trichotomized scale and the similar presentation with items pointing downwards and person location, person score pointing upwards, placed on an interval scale. And as we can see over here to the left, the mean difference is somewhat worse, minus 0.479, which is worse than the 1 to 10 scale, but still well within below the 1 which equals poor targeting. And if we look at the distribution, we can see that it matches each other. The person and item matches each other reasonably well, but of course not as perfect as in the 1 to 10 scale. So this result indicates that the trichotomization procedure negatively affects measurement targeting in this study. Category threshold order. To the left, we have the 1 to 10 scale, in the figure above, we present item 18 and the figure below item 7. And to the right are the trichotomized result, item 18 above and 7 below. And I will present and try to describe the result based on the trichotomized scales, the figures of the trichotomized scale to the right. On the x-axis is person location on logits and placed on an interval scale here. And the y-axis is probability. It says here 0, 1, and 2, but that's only from the program, the RUM 2030. These actually are response option 1, response option 2, and response option 3 in our trichotomized scale. So what this shows is that in the lower person locations, response option 1 is the most probable answer. In the middle part here of the person location, response option 2 is the most probable answer. And in the upper person location, response option 3 is the most probable answer. And what we are looking for is these threshold here, where a response option 1 and 2 meet and 2 and 3 meet. These threshold, called Andrich thresholds, should be ordered in the right order. Now, response option 1 and 2 should meet first, and response option 2 and 3 should meet later. And this indicates in item 18 that we have a good category threshold order from low, moderate to high. If we go to the figure below, item 7, in the lower person location, response option 1 is the most probable, but the threshold here, it directly changes to response option 3. And as you can see, response option 2, there is no point where response option 2 is the most probable outcome. And the thresholds between response option 2 and 3 meet before response option 1 and 2, which shows category threshold disorder. This item does not, the response options, I should say, does not work as intended from low, moderate to high. And this table shows all of the items with this category threshold order, all 22 items, and to the left is the result from the 1 to 10 scale, and to the right the trichotomized scale. And items colored in gray show category threshold disorder, meaning that they do not work as intended, and it is not a continuum from low to higher degree of problems. So only 9 items in the 1 to 10 scale show good category threshold order, whereas in the trichotomized scale, 21 of the 22 items show a good category threshold order. Only the one we looked at previously, item 7, show disorder. And this means that differences in the ratings in the trichotomized scale are reliable, reflecting true differences. And this is very important to be able to rely on the differences in the responses. discussion, the result of this study supports the use of the SMET questionnaire as a method with a high psychometric quality, useful for a broad multifactorial evaluation of work environment in healthcare settings. And this is an important finding since, as I mentioned in the beginning, a recent systematic literature review identified a need for high-quality methods for evaluation of the work environment in a healthcare setting. And then with regards to the construct of the SMET questionnaire. Our results in this study shows that the SMET questionnaire is able to capture the construct of work environment as well as the domains of physical and psychosocial work demands due to its good internal consistency reliability, both in this case for the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomized scale. This result with regards to internal consistency and the results from comparing the factor analysis supports the trichotomization procedure, since the trichotomization had a minimal effect on the construct of the SMET questionnaire. However, the SMET questionnaire might be less able to capture the construct of environmental work demands with the trichotomized scale, indicating that more items should be added in this domain in future revisions of the questionnaire. And our interpretation of this result is internal consistency is sensitive to the number of options in a questionnaire. More response options and more items generally increase internal consistency. And in the in the work environment aspects, there are only 4 items, and that works relatively good when we have 10 response options in the 1 to 10 scale. Then the internal consistency is still acceptable. But in the trichotomized scale, we decrease that even further, 4 items with only 3 response options, and that's maybe too few, leading to a lower internal consistency. So that's why our suggestion is that more items in this aspect in work environmental work demands should be added in future revisions. The person item threshold distribution showed very good measurement targeting with the 1 to 10 scale, and the result with the trichotomized scale, as expected, showed less precision. And why is that expected? Our interpretation is that the more response options, the more precise, the more precision you have in your measurement, and that is shown and leading to the differences in the 1 to 10 scale and the trichotomized scale. The study results showed that category threshold order was much better with the trichotomized scale, which is also an expected finding, because our result indicates that it actually is a trade-off between precision or measurement targeting and category threshold order, or should I say, you can also call it reliability. The more options, the more specific your measurement can be, but it also increases the probability that you get a category threshold disorder and the scale does not work as intended. The trichotomization procedure in the SMET questionnaire is strongly supported due to minimally affected ability to capture the construct of the work environment, good good acceptable measurement targeting, and good, or should I say very good, category threshold order. And these results are of great importance when evaluating work environment and the effect of work environment measures, because you can rely on that the differences in the measurement reflects true differences. Practical implications for occupational health service work and scientific research. The SMET questionnaire will help to identify specific work-related problems since it evaluates the work environment from a broader multifactorial perspective than other measurement methods. The results will support in identifying work-related problems since this study shows that the differences in the trichotomized scale, green, yellow, and red, are reliable. So therefore we can identify what items that indicates a low degree of problems or what items that indicates high degree of problems in research and in practice. The SMET questionnaire will be practically useful to evaluate the result of conducted work environment measures or interventions. If there are differences between baseline and follow-up evaluations, these differences will be reliable, showing true changes in the work environment. The large sample size in this study is a strength. It strengthens the value of the results since sample sizes above 500 are considered very good in both rash analysis and classical test theory. Item fit analysis in the rash model was not conducted in this study since all items in the SMET questionnaire are compiled and interpreted separately. Because in rash, you can actually, in several measure instruments, you sum up the scores of the different items to a total score. And in classical test theory, that assumption that actually works cannot be tested, but that can be done in rash, and such analysis could include item fit analysis and maybe also a measurement called evaluation called differential item functioning, but this is not done since we are compiling and presenting the result in the items separately. The SMET questionnaire has so far only been tested in healthcare context. The psychometric properties of the SMET questionnaire must be evaluated further if the questionnaire is to be used in other parts of the labor market. So in conclusion, the results of this study supports the use of the SMET questionnaire as a psychometrically well-tested method for broad multifactorial evaluation of the work environment in healthcare settings. The good psychometric properties of the SMET questionnaire are of great importance and will contribute to identification of work environment problems, supporting correct measures to improve the work environment, making it possible to follow up and evaluate the outcomes of work environment measures with high quality, validity, and reliability, both in practical occupational health service work and in scientific research. And if there is questions and comments not covered in the coming questions, please contact us on my email address, patrik.haraldsson@rjl.se. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much. That was so interesting. And it's exciting that all of your colleagues are here with you. So I'd like to open it up for a moment to see if anyone would like to comment. And if someone would be willing to comment on the future, what's next?
Kristina here. I would like to comment on that because when having this instrument, the SMET questionnaire, we use it regularly and we've used it working with it since 2014. But for the future, we'll also look forward to seeing how this instrument works in other settings. We have it's been tested out in industry, but we're also testing it out in higher education, for example, because it's easy to think that you know something about the work environment from being there observing, but it's something completely different to actually clearly listen in and measuring how the work environment is experienced, what the difficulties are. And this instrument, the SMET questionnaire, is so easy to administer that you can actually do this regularly. So you can both follow up interventions, but actually find problems in an easy way. And I think that is for our future research and practical work with the SMET questionnaire is really important. The easiness might not sound as easy when we've been now diving into rationalisis, but that's just to make sure that the instrument really works as well as we think it does, or it should do.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very important clarification. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment?
Yeah, I could, Patrik here again. I could also mention that we have conducted intervention studies using the SMET method, where the SMET questionnaire is a part of supporting in this intervention study, supporting healthcare workplaces with first mapping the work environment conditions and supporting the workplaces in their measurements or interventions to improve work conditions. And I think we have interesting results with this with the SMET method in this case, because it's a whole method to really support the workplace to get them to know where are our problems and what to do, and then evaluate and see, yes, we made it, or maybe we have to think differently and attack the problems in a different way to improve.
Thank you for that comment. You know, I think we learn so much from lessons learned in everything that we do.
Kristina here as well, and I would also like to add something about this doing a rationalisis in an instrument that you have already a lot of data on. I think that's something that we have learned a lot from. We have done that in other studies as well, that we are not staying satisfied with simple classic test theory, but we are actually also doing a rationalisis. And I think that is something that should be done for a lot more instruments, because there is a lot of learning in that, and this learning is important when you interpret your results and also outcomes of interventions. When you measure again, you really need to know a lot more about what you actually do measure than you can do with classical test theory.
Thank you for that that point. Again, I appreciate the detail that all of you have done in this journal article. I think it's such an important approach for us to understand, and we know that assessments, having valid and reliable assessments is key for helping us in healthcare. Any last thoughts or takeaway? before we conclude this webinar. And again, I want to thank all of you for publishing in Work. I hope we'll have more papers in the future, maybe a special issue. And again, thank you for this webinar. So any last thoughts you'd like to share?
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Patrik.
Very honored.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank our listeners. We love having our webinars on our Learn at Work YouTube channel. You'll have the opportunity to listen to this one as well as the others in the future. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you.